to do with the platform. Oh no, there you go. Here we go.
Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up.
Hello, Ben.
Hello, Jeremy. Happy Friday.
Yes, indeed. Happy Friday, and welcome everybody to this week's edition of Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up, where we look at everything to do with technology, change, innovation. This week, we're going to focus on BIBA. It's been a BIBA week, a Justin Bieber week.
Yes, it
And
has.
you were there, Ben, our man on the ground, so to speak.
I was there. I've done my job.
We'll get a bit of insight from that. And we're also going to look at AI. I've got some insights from a special interest group meeting that we ran around AI as well, so I'll share that. And we're going to do the death of risk and stagflation. But as always, let's start with a bit of news, Ben. So you picked this up. So insurers launch cover for losses caused by AI chatbot errors. That's interesting. That's good. What's all this about?
Yeah, so it's kind of an opportunity that the market's getting in on now, which is this notion that everybody's going to be using AI, and therefore there's going to be all sorts of kind of unconscious error, I suppose. Not deliberate errors, but things that just arise as a result of AI. And some insurers have launched this product from malfunctioning artificial intelligence tools. It seems quite risky to me to do this. I mean, my God, I wonder what that policy actually does. It's a bit opportunistic, I think, probably. Several Lloyd's insurers are underwriting it. Miller, ARMILLA, a startup backed by Y Combinator. There's a couple of words you never heard before.
Yeah.
They'll cover the cost of court claims if it's sued by a customer or another third party who suffered harm. That's going to be an interesting thing. Virgin Money apologized in January after its AI-powered chatbot reprimanded a customer for using the word virgin. While Courier Group DPD last year disabled part of its customer service bot after it swore at customers and called its owner the worst delivery service company in the world.
But I mean, that's fine. I mean, they're just facts.
I mean, it's honest. That's what AI is being honest. Actually, I have a good DPD delivery service, to be fair. So this. I mean, we know the things. We know what's going to happen. What this sort of stuff is. It might be trivial. I guess it might be more serious. It said the guy who runs it, Karthik Ramakrishnan, our Miller chief exec, said the new product could encourage more companies to adopt AI, since it's heard by fears that tools such as chatbots would break down. General policy covers up to 5 million. Losses might stipulate a 25,000 sub-limit, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I don't know that anybody knows what the hell they're doing with this insurance. Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck. I'm not sure I'd want to get into that area. Chaucer's doing it. His group would not sign policies covering AI systems they judge to be excessively prone to breakdown. Will be selective. Well, that's obvious. No surprise there. How are they going to know?
Goodness knows. It's witchcraft.
Blimey. What a world we live in.
Indeed. Well, there we go. We'll see how these products develop and how they respond, if they respond at all. Anyway, let's move on. Right. We're going to have a look at stagflation. Is this, Ben? And the death of do you think? Risk, or how do you explain this?
Yeah, so this is an explainer, which is I need to take a deep breath for, but it's depressing for a Friday, but it needs to be spoken about. And so, why I thought I'd link these two things up, stagflation and this thing about the death of risk, is because I think it does have an impact on insurance in the world we're in. So if we can attempt to get if I can attempt you to get some understanding of this, Jeremy, I think it will stand us in good stead. It'll be a foundation of our show in terms of, the economic context and background for everything that we talk about. So what is stagflation? Stagflation is really what shouldn't happen. Basically, economists can't really explain stagflation because it goes against all the rules. It's typically termed an economic nightmare. Because basically in stagflation, it was first recognized in the 1960s, and it pretty much shattered all the sort of long-held theories of economists about what happened. And what it is basically the simultaneous appearance of slow growth, high unemployment, and high prices. So everything that could be bad is bad. And it's all happening at the same time. And normally, of course, these different forces offset one another. So you have to kind of balance them out through various interventions. But this makes, when stagflation happens, almost anything that you do in terms of fiscal policy or financial policy makes it worse. So if you inject money into the system, it increases the inflation. If you do that, so you've got the problem with stagflation that there's almost bugger all you can do about it when it starts. It's really, really difficult. And they don't even know why it starts. So it gets better and better. So you can measure it. I mean, they measure it by a misery index, which is basically inflation and unemployment rates. The reason I'm talking about it now is because there's a great fear that we are in a period now of stagflation, some of which has been caused and exacerbated by Trump's tariffs, so tariffs is theoretically one of the things that causes this. So what happens, for example, is, if people expect, the other thing is around expectation of inflation. So this is why it's difficult, because it's about how people behave as well as the economic forces, and they're all intertwined, and basically this is kind of where economists they always fall apart anyway, but economists really fall apart when it comes to stagflation. So if people expect inflation if we expect inflation to go up, we would ask for higher wages. We'd say we want more money in our pay packets because it's going to cost more to buy things. And then businesses then raise their prices again and lower their production, their productivity, and they also then start laying people off because they're not really, because people have stopped buying as well. So you see these things sort of come together because of different things. Now, one of the theories is that, and none of these are absolutely nailed on. There's a lot of debate about it, but one of the theories is that often stagflation comes about because of supply chain shocks, and obviously in a global world, we're so dependent on these supply chains. So when you get disruption on supply chains, it reduces your productive capacity as a country or an economy, while simultaneously raising the costs. So you've got these two things. Your productivity goes down, your costs go up. So that's what's creating these things happening at the same time. And high tariffs can have the same effect, and particularly over a longer period of time, and particularly when you do them quickly, like Trump has. So that's why Trump was warned basically by the Fed and other people in the markets that, he could create a problem in which there would be this kind of stagflation. So people losing jobs, high inflation, et cetera, and lower productivity. So all that's, all that's really cheerful and good. And we're in this period. So now there's this article, which is I just going to put it in, which is by it's sort of very good if you get the chance to read it. It's kind of a colleague of our friend the Acid Capitalist, Jeremy,
Wait a minute.
Put it on. There you go.
I have the cap.
Great. So this is where it all joins up. So the acid capitalist. Now this chap Ben Hunt is a kind of leading commentator on finances, and I think he was a mate. I don't know if he still is of the acid capitalist, and he's written this really interesting article called "The Death of Risk," which obviously caught my attention. And he has this very good. I'll just read it out. So he really talks about this fact that we are on a kind of slow route to stagnation, with stagflation happening, stagnation and stagflation. And so what he says is it's not, the world isn't going to end in a big bang, crash, bang, fire and flames. It's going to end slowly, and we'll kind of die in the bathtub type thing. So this is what he said. Certainly that's what stagflation is. Economic death in the bathtub. Economic death by slow, ignominious ice rather than quick, heroic fire. It's not a crushing recession where everyone loses their jobs and a great wailing erupts across the land. It's a long, grey slog where meagre real growth feels like death. But you keep up appearances as best you can. Stagflation is a long, grey slog where every day you feel more and more stretched, because nothing is getting cheaper, and every now and then you'll be hit with a new price or an unexpected bill that literally takes your breath away. You can manage it for now, but damn, stagflation is a long grey slog where you read about people in the news making lots of money or riding some big financial win. All smiles, but in your own financial life and the financial lives of everyone you know, the smiles are increasingly wan and forced. Everyone you know is bleeding, not yet bleeding out, but damn. Anyway, so this is he's saying it's happening to us, and it's happening slowly, and this is because companies are stuck. We're all stuck now in this kind of this stagflation thing where you can't do anything. So insurers get a real hit on this as well, because they've become risk averse, which is why I related it to insurance. They kind of don't want to write anything new or risky. So nor do companies want to take risks. And when it comes to consumers, I mean, this chap, Ben Cohen, has talked to quite a lot of consumers. And he says that when you look at the sort of behaviors in terms of consumption, because he goes around talking to people, he says that basically everybody is doing what they did before. So in people's consumption, in terms of what we're spending, we're all spending the same thing. But we're not spending anything new, right? So we're not taking any risks on it. We're just going along thinking and hoping it's going to be okay, but it kind of isn't. The only thing he does say that's been cut back is travel to the US. And that's been massively cut back. So that's kind of a sign of something really important, which we'll come on to in a second. And then when you look at people's risk-taking behaviors, he says everything has changed. All the people who are not in the US are bringing their money back home to wherever they live or whatever. So they're pulling money out of the US as fast as they can. And they want to eliminate their risk exposure to the US. The US people aren't doing anything in a profound way. They're not buying new houses or expanding or bankrolling this new startup or anything. But they're also not selling stocks or buying gold or that sort of, going crazy. But they're just stuck again in this, nothing, not taking risk, but equally not spending less. So you've got this, You see what I mean? You've got this stuck bit. And this is because everybody's extremely unsure about the future and they don't want to risk investing in anything new. They don't trust, importantly, the safe havens, which we've talked about before when we talked about my explainer on the bond markets, like Treasury, US Treasuries or T-bonds as they're known. And they don't want to risk selling anything old. So they do nothing. They literally do nothing. So therefore, we are kind of stuck. So it's the death of risk. And it's a very weird place. And this chart here shows essentially what's kind of happening. And he basically just says we're in an incredibly weird place. Where essentially when there's a market crisis and you can see some of them there, everybody sells off, right? Boom, boom, boom. They just chuck everything, buy gold, sell stocks, go to safe havens. But at the moment, there is this kind of situation where we're not doing anything, not selling off, and we're not buying. So this is if you've understood all of that, and I don't expect you to understand all of it because I don't. It basically is a kind of very grim view of growth in the world because we are stuck, and that probably is quite not great for insurance.
So how about this from Paolo as a bit of a pushback? Isn't AI supposed to be the savior of productivity, and the US will be at the heart of that? So
yeah, well,
that is interesting. So I wonder whether if you take what's the chat called? The article?
The article's called "The Death of Risk," and it's by Ben Hunt, not Ben Cohen. He's a rugby player.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Ben.
Ben Hunt. Yeah,
Ben Hunt. So if he's kind of death by in the bathtub or by 1,000 cuts or whatever you want to say, is AI going to help?
Well,
that?
So my answer, we can debate it generally, but I think my answer is, and I don't have a quick, easy answer, obviously, to this because I don't think there is a quick, easy answer. But I don't think that from what we've looked at before, and we have done it on the show before, I don't think the projected returns from AI productivity yet, certainly short to medium term, are big enough to really make a difference to the global economy. I mean, let's have a look at that next week, but I don't think they are big enough. This is about the really big money around the world, in all the safe parts of the economy, and it's also about the US now, not being an attractive place to invest, right? Which is, my Siri's gone off.
It's
my Siri said it didn't understand me. Bloody AI. Anyway, show me up. So I don't. I mean, I think let's get Paolo on and have a chat about it and see, because there are so many things going on, but there is a great debate under this article as well about the whole of the the US economy and where institutions, including insurers, are not taking enough risk. And I think we've touched on this before, and I think people do say this in the market, that they're no longer the same sorts of companies they were. They're just picking and choosing things, but they're kind of very static. And actually, the insurance market, if we just talk about that we know a little bit about, that is not, that pie is not growing, certainly in insurance markets, because it isn't very innovative. But it also could be because there is so much risk aversion, in the market. So yes, I mean, to Paolo's point, maybe productivity will increase, but will that be enough to kind of move these great economic forces that even the economists don't really understand?
Well,
that's blown your mind, isn't it?
Yeah, that's just a quick light-hearted look at the global economy.
A light canapé before the weekend to get you thinking.
That's it. And now the weather.
Well, it is interesting. I mean, you think we've got to cover the big topics on this show, and there's no bigger one than that.
There isn't. Well, thanks, Ben. I did understand it, so thank you. Thanks.
You see why I needed a deep breath before I started there, though. Yeah,
you're absolutely right.
It's quite good, this show, because there's things I read about and I just skim, and then I don't really understand them, and then I do have to really read about it before to understand it. I don't know what I'm going to do next week. I think I'm going to do the best way to put a shelf up.
Yeah, flat pack furniture. Tips and quick wins.
Stagflation this week, and then shelf DIY next week would be good.
Yeah. That's a breadth of it. Anyway, let's move on, because we spent quite a long time on the global economy, and I wanted to get your thoughts on BIBA, Ben, because you were there on the ground. Do you want to just give us a quick flavour, and then we can play the walk around?
Okay, so BIBA held in Manchester, as it always is now in the Manchester Central Conference Centre. Very big place. It's a combination of an exhibition hall where everybody flocks around and does a lot of business, brokers meet insurers, and some conference sessions. So it's an actual conference, proper conference that runs alongside it. So they have various celebrities talking, BIBA people talking, so sessions on AI, sessions on claims. Anthony Joshua, Gareth Southgate, the BIBA CEO talking about what they were doing. You name it, it was there. And it's literally over 2 days, 2.5 days. And it's 10,000 people, nearly 10,000, 9,900 people.
Cool.
Attending.
Shall we have a quick look at it then? We got
flavor,
2 minutes.
Yeah, flavor.
Here we go.
So here we go. I'm just doing for Burgess Bolton a bit of a walk around at the BIBA 2025. Sorry, I haven't got my long pole thing, so I'm a bit close to this, and I don't want to put my arm out too much because I'm going to bash people with my fist if I do that. So I'll be careful. I'll turn you around now and show you a bit of the conference. Talk about some of the stands. Yeah, so there's probably nigh on 10,000 people going to come to this conference over 2 days. It's almost 3 days now, really. But it's basically, as you can see, all these brokers are essentially doing business. So there's tons and tons of meetings. It's actually quite hard to talk to a broker here because they're all doing business with insurers. But that's the way it is, and we end up talking to a lot of insurers. So there's a ton of obviously big insurer stands, investors, Investec, some technology companies, but not as many as you might think. Verisk is here, and some of the others, but not as many in this market as you might get. This is more of an insurance broking kind of event, really, for insurers to meet brokers. Tons of people from all over the world. It's kind of pretty much what it is. To be honest, yeah, so it's cool. Sorry, guys.
I like those clips. It reminds me of when Martin Brundle runs around the pit lane before the start of a Grand Prix.
Yeah. I was getting increasingly difficult. I was going through that. I was going to do that thing in Airplane, like when he kung fu's everybody through the airport. Get out of my way.
Yeah. Anyway, there seems to be a real buzz there. Was there a lot of people talking about stagflation, or is it a bit more?
No, I wasn't able to talk about stagflation, I can tell you. Blank stares on that. It was buzzy. It was very good. I mean, it was sunny and it was rather Mediterranean feeling in Manchester. So a lot of people were outside in coffee places and bars and things. So it spread out quite a bit. So it did actually feel a bit more relaxed. When it's chucking it down, which it often is in Manchester, it gets a bit more kind of frenetic in that hall. No, it was very good. I mean, the conference itself was good. There was a great political panel with Penny Mordaunt and
Sword Woman.
She's good. She's very good, actually. Very good. They had Clive Myrie introducing it, so there's some really good stuff. It's very good, extremely good kind of content actually in the sessions. And I went to a claims session as well, which is quite interesting. Yeah, I mean, I suppose we're in a kind of softish market, so the insurers are quite, let's say, quite or extremely keen, animated to win business at the moment, and it's very competitive, and that was quite palpable, actually. I mean, I know I spoke to quite a few insurers, but unlike previous years where the insurers were quite relaxed, they didn't feel so relaxed this year. There was quite a bit of competitive tension in the room, I think, and a bit easier for brokers probably because they can get get stuff underwritten now more easily than they could before. And there's a lot of change coming. The RSA NIG merger is happening and the rebrand to Intact. So a lot of people talking about that. Quite a bit of talk about AI as well, which you've seen. So a lot going on. I had a chat with the FCA, who were next door to us. So the regulator has brought out a paper on simplification of regulation, which is just about to be launched, which is their general policy, I think. But they've got a whole consultation going out now around simplifying all the old and redundant types of regulatory things in the insurance industry. So the people were pleased about that, really pleased about that. So so there was interesting kind of feel to it all, I think. Certainly quite upbeat from a broker perspective, I'd say.
Yeah, good. And I think you attended, not take part in, but you attended a claims panel as part of that. Now, I've watched this. It's only 3 minutes, but I think it's worth playing because there are some good points made.
Interesting.
Let's play the clip and then we'll come back and chat about claims a bit.
As a claims director, if I woke up and found my house flooded, I wouldn't be as comfortable as people probably think about what the hell to do about it. And, I call myself an expert in these sorts of things.
These statements of fact, almost everyone we look at is not true. So when we're reviewing, we review programs, we place insurance through brokers, and we run claims. It's very simple. When we review them, almost every case there'll be a statement of fact. There'll be something on there. You're profitable, or they're not profitable. Yeah. You don't work in the US, or they do work in the US. Yeah. And it's like, why do you do that? Why do you do it? Because you want to minimize. You want to say to the customer, we're going to get your prices down, we're going to get your deductibles down, and we're going to make it really easy for you to buy, and you do the minimum amount of work. And I'm like, that isn't helping them. Yeah. You need to act more like a doctor. Yeah. And you need to say that you've got a part to play here. And I think that's what I'm really getting at. And that's also part of communicating the value of it. You're trying to transpose them to a moment where it all goes wrong, and the only thing that gives them a future, is this insurance works. Well, your job is now when you're buying it. It's not then, And I think we just, obviously in our line of work, we get too many claims that come to us which have already been declined, And they're really difficult, some of them. And,
those that haven't been declined, the onus is on us to make sure our search plans are right and we're ready to do the absolute best job. So there might not be a policy issue. We can still feel the policyholder might not doing the job right. And, planning around having everybody ready to get up onto the phones and things like that. We should be proud of the steps we're doing to think about these things. And you do learn my experience.
I think you should be proud of what the industry's done over the last 10 years, but I actually think your ambitions will only be achieved if you change the way the customer base engages. And that I don't think we have improved in the last 10 years on Scout. And I'm almost challenging you to walk out of this room today and think about whether you do that to your customers. I sat with a customer, it's just the nature of our business. Their premiums, it's about $15,000 a year. We can't really work on cases of that size. And it's the CEO, it's the founder. It turns over about 3-4 million. It's a good business, it's growing well. And he said, I can tell you, my broker knows absolutely nothing about this business. And I'm like, well, I'm telling you, this is what you have to do. This is your job when you're arranging insurance. Make sure you talk to a broker. So we're not getting involved in that case. And I just think it's kind of sad because, so we took a call. We were never going to make any money out of it. We did it as a favour. My only job was to sell them the value of what you're buying. You're paying 15 grand a year, but you're hoping that this thing will divvy up 5 million quid on your bad day. Well, know what your job is. And I think that, if you want a real game changer in claims, I think you can do that. And if you go to 10 customers, I reckon 3 of them will engage with that if you challenge them. Not all, 7 won't. They'll just get bored. They'll say, I'm mildly interested, but can you get me a cheaper price? Well, okay, so just get me a cheaper price and leave the risk as theirs. But you've got enough customers out there that would like to embrace the things you guys are already trying to do.
So that was McTavish, is that his name?
Bruce Hepburn from McTavish.
Bruce Hepburn, yeah. So that kind of argument around creating a customer-centric culture before, during that placing process, in order to make sure that when a claim comes through, it's kind of you've already scenario planned, you've got a plan in place, everyone knows what to expect. How many years have we been talking about that at London Market?
I know, I agree. I mean, I put this up because, actually this is the first time I've heard it on a kind of major panel where people are actually saying, look, there are lots of things that are positive that have been done, but they're all from the inside out, those things. They're not from this customer perspective. And Bruce I do think he makes a really good point. And I completely 100% agree with him on this, is that we don't as an industry share the responsibility with our customer. Now, when you talk often about transactions and buying and selling things, the consultancy speakers, which I kind of think in this case is useful, is often called a value exchange. I pay you something in exchange for something else. I get a service or a thing. That's what insurance is. What Bruce is saying, and rightly so, and not quite as explicitly, perhaps, you can articulate it a different way, is the problem with insurance, and it's unique, is because you pay for this policy and then later on you might use it, but there's a disconnect between that payment point and so on and so forth. I think he was being somewhat polite to the industry there, because obviously he had Aviva sitting next to him and Markel, and there's a certain protocol around these things. But the truth of the matter is that, in reading between the lines, is that he's saying, look, insurers just want to sell the policy, and if they find an unsophisticated buyer who doesn't want to have that kind of longer discussion at the beginning, they will sell the policy. And then, as he says quite rightly, when you expect this 15 grand premium to turn into 5 million when you've had your calamity, and they say, well, you didn't disclose certain things, then you're screwed, right? So I think that, and I had a conversation, it's very similar-ish conversation with the FCA about this, saying the same thing, is that one of the big issues that they really see is the lack of communication around what the policy is supposed to do when you buy it. Now, you can take all sorts of views, and there's a whole discussion debate that will go on around this. I mean, I have a view that you can communicate the benefits of these policies more simply and easily than showing them the bloody small print. And the FCA agreed with me on that. And the FCA said, the problem we often have is we say, well, you've got to disclose, what's in the policy. And then the insurer will just go, well, there's 25 pages of small print that nobody's ever going to read. And FCA says, well, that's not what we meant. That's not. And in some countries, they have limited it, saying you have to have a one-pager, right? So we are crabbing towards the debate around what are we supposed to do with the customer. But I think the really important point that Bruce is making is you are not going to change this industry unless you bring that customer into that conversation. I think Bruce is saying what the principle is that should happen, but I think there are tons of ways of doing that, and they revolve around this. What's the customer experience? What do they want? I mean, he said, well, 7 in 10 won't be interested. Fine. If you want to grow the business, though, really, I'm in marketing, right? I would say, find out ways to explain to the other 7, or at least explain to 7 out of 10, not 3 out of 10. Don't stay with the status quo, because all sorts of other industries, historically and in the world we live in, explain quite complicated products in simple ways to their customers. So why can't we do that in insurance? I mean, I'm not so sure how different we are as an industry when it comes to that communication. I just don't think we've done it, because I think we're too siloed, and every single business to an extent just says, let's look at the inputs, not the outcomes or the outputs, and I think that's where the problem lies. But I think it was really well summed up in that conversation by Bruce, and the person on the left was the ombudsman. There was a Markel guy there. There was a broker who was chairing it, and there was Aviva head of claims was sitting next to director of claims operations. Was sitting next to Bruce. So it's kind of interesting group. But I think that's whether they will listen to Bruce's exhortation to go and change. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, but I think it is pushing at that though.
certainly, I'm just reflecting back on London Market Claims last year, and I think there was two things that were refreshing about that conference compared to previous iterations. And the first one was the diversity of people in the room. There was a lot more younger, still senior people in that audience who had a different mindset around service, the use of technology, communications, that type of discussion. So you've got kind of those things that might move the dial. I also think that customers, and we had them represented by Julia Graham from AirMic at our event, pushing the industry to be more transparent, to run scenarios, to be clear about how these policies are going to react in whatever type of thing. So I'm fairly optimistic. I think the problem, I think sometimes at London Market Claims particularly is the point that you started with. It very quickly goes to, this is an operational challenge, or it's internal processes, rather than saying no, it's not. It's about being open, transparent, and communicating effectively with customers. And if you do that, you're not going to be firefighting all the time trying to get emails from somebody who's in the middle of a claim, because those types of conversation would have already happened way earlier in the process.
Now, the one thing, and this is going back to Paolo's point a bit here, which is that the one thing that I didn't show you in that conversation was there was quite a discussion about productivity and AI. And I think the general view was that AI is going to help and is helping productivity. It's a time and motion exercise, and you can really work out quite quickly what you spend your money on in terms of the productive nature of the current job and where AI will help that. And the savings, I think for most part, what they were saying on that panel are immediately noticeable and immediately material to your business. So what that fundamentally does, though, is it should free up more of the people and the time to be able to do the thing we're talking about, because that is obviously the big challenge. Is you go, oh yeah, let's have this big change, but there's nobody there to do it because they're all filling out forms and checking things and rekeying and all the things we know about. Whereas actually, if they could be out there talking to customers saying, this is what we do, this is how the policy is, do you understand that, and everything else, you suddenly create an efficiency. But it's an efficiency that comes from freeing up people's time, not necessarily through, as you say, an operation or a computerized process.
Yeah. And I was going to, I think I said at the top of the show, I was going to kind of give some insights from the special interest group, but I'm going to save that for next week because we're kind of running out of time a bit here, and I wanted to spend a bit of time, because one of the key kind of lessons from the room that I'll share in a bit more detail next week is kind of that resourcing of proofs of concept, and how the same people all the time, and actually you can extrapolate that across industry initiatives, whatever it is, the same people get pulled into the projects because they're engaged, they want it to happen, and then they're trying to do a day job as well. So we'll have a chat about how that might, how you resolve that, and how you get a broader church behind some of these initiatives to make sure that whatever the change is that you're trying to implement really does stick and deliver ROI. Because the real problem is that if you do take, let's say, AI into a claims process and it doesn't work, that it doesn't just work there. You kind of lose the team, you lose the dressing room, and it's very difficult to turn that around.
I agree. And I think one of the things that I'm kind of thinking about quite a bit is that AI is making us think about what is the value of people more than what's the value of computerization. And the value of people is often quite a long-term thing. It's like build a relationship, get to know people, build experience, understand what goes on in a claim, so that when I meet Jeremy, and I can say, what sort of business do you run, and you can go, oh, okay, Jeremy, well, you know what, you think about this, make sure you fill that out on the form, make sure you do that, advise them of this, and also maybe buy this excess thing here, whatever. configure, we'll work together, configure it. But it is a conversation. But that conversation, which might feel costly to an insurer, actually means that when that claim happens, it's very easy because the customer knows exactly what's going to happen and what they should do. I mean, that guy from Markel made a really good point. He said, I'm an expert in claims, but if I have a flood at my home, I'm really uncomfortable about what I'm supposed to do at that point, whether I'll get paid. And I know exactly what he's saying. I think he's right. We don't really know how claims work because we're not taught about it in a sense, even if we're in the industry. So I think that efficiency that you create from that early investment, basically, and it will create efficiency and advantage. And I think customers will stay with you as well and pay a bit more for that.
Yeah.
But it's contrary to some extent. You could argue it's contrary to the whole cost effectiveness argument around AI, but I don't think it necessarily should be around just cost effectiveness.
No, I from the conversations that I have, the people I'm fairly close to, IT operations, that group, I think it very much is around building capabilities, freeing up time, doing more with less. That's your that's the prize. It isn't about stripping out people. At all the conferences, I think there's always a session looking at talent and the next generation of talent, and nobody is saying we want to cut back on the number of people. We'll talk about this more next week. But
no, I agree. I didn't ask the question, and they didn't have time to get into it. But I do think the change in the skills requirement, you've got to dial certain things up and certain things down. You're going to really effectively dial down the tick box administrative, dull, boring stuff abilities into much more sort of kind of what you might call touchy-feely, softer skills, really. But those, I think we're going to have to learn within this industry just about what those skills really mean and how valuable they are competitively, and commercially.
Yeah. Good. All right. Thanks for that, Ben. That was a rich vein. We've gone from stagflation to claims and service in just 42 minutes. Brilliant.
I don't know what else there is. Covered everything.
Yeah. So what are you doing this weekend?
Not actually a lot, to be fair. I have just joined a golf club though, so I might go and do a bit of golf practice.
Oh,
on the new golf. I might even go on the new golf course if they let me in.
There you go. Sounds very exciting. I'm not a golfer, as we talked about.
I'm watching the FA Cup final, though. That'll be good. I'm really looking forward to that. My second team, Crystal Palace. So I hope they win.
Yeah,
Eagles.
I'll be watching that too, and yeah, Oh, I know what I got to do. I got to take down a wardrobe. It's just rock and roll.
There you go. Could be. And it's the Eurovision Song Contest.
Again, I don't know anything about that.
Oh, I love that. We should do a little thing on it next week.
Okay, you can do an explainer because it definitely needs explaining to me.
Okay. There's not a lot to explain, but yes, I can do an explainer on it. Yeah.
But isn't it all very political? And I mean, I used to watch it when Terry Wogan used to be just, what's it?
All changed, mate. It's all changed. Rylan.
Just used to be rude to different countries.
Scott Mills, Rylan. It's a whole new world of people presenting it now. It's, new gen, next gen. So it's kind of political still, but it's it's always been part of it.
Yeah,
but it's become a real extravaganza. And
yes, isn't it up there with the kind of the Super Bowl? But a global audience thing.
It's massive. Yeah. A friend of mine won a BAFTA the other day.
Really?
Yeah, I've got friends who win BAFTAs. That's the sort of show this is. I'm not saying that we would win a BAFTA, but I could. I'm going to ask him for some advice.
This show wouldn't win anything. It doesn't even win my approval.
It doesn't. Well, that's a fair point made. Yes, I don't think. But this was a reality TV show called The Jury, and he won, and he beat the Traitors.
Wow, that's impressive.
It is, yeah, it is, isn't it? He didn't expect to win. He looked a bit surprised on stage. But yes, he's pleased. He's showing off on Facebook.
Good. Okay, thanks for tuning in, everyone. We will be back next week. We'll talk more about AI. I'll give you some insights into that ops stuff, and we'll do some news as always. But yeah, enjoy the weekend, enjoy the weather. We'll see you next week.
Happy weekend. Bye.